us out on YouTube, Facebook, and X. And for the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. And that's just a sampling. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. For laptops, mobile phones, and tablets, download the Roku app. National Streaming Sports, live and on demand, sports talk for America.
This show is brought to you by BetUS.com. 125% off your first 3 deposits, 30 years experience, secure site, wagering for all sports, including during the games and futures. SeatGeek provides you the best prices on sports and music events, game tickets, and concerts. Use NSS promo code to get $20 off your first ticket. Keep using the NSS promo code when purchasing tickets for great deals in the future. In Fanatics at nessp.info for your favorite teams, sportswear. Click on the link, and while you're there, check out our national streaming sports merchandise. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. Leading you off first here on our Roku channel as we cover all the sports the past few days. We've been out for a while. I'm glad you guys have been sticking with us. I've had some medical issues, but we're back, and I know what Greenie says, better than ever. I don't want to use Greenie's. I don't even know if that is like I have to pay to say it or something. So I'm not going to.
Better than ever. I don't know about we won't be any worse. We won't be any worse than we usually are. Let's put it that way.
That's a good slogan, yeah. Jack. You can't do any worse than Mac and Jack in the morning. So we're going to get going here on some of the NFL games, and of course, as always, Friday, one of the best in the business, Keith Angle comes on the show. Good morning, Keith. How you doing?
Good morning, guys. Hope you had a good holiday.
Yeah. It was a nice Christmas. The games left a lot to be desired, but more
time with family. You don't have to sit in front of the TV.
Yes, exactly. So let's get it started, guys. The lowest scoring game of the year, Seattle puts it on Chicago 6-3. And I guess Geno Smith had 160 yards. Nobody threw for anything. Nobody ran for anything. The biggest complaint, I guess, especially from the Chicago fans, was the time management at the end of the game, guys. Timeouts used that didn't have to be used. And I guess I didn't watch the game because I fell asleep, to be honest with you. I guess on a 4th and 6, they called the punt team or something with the game at the end. What happened? I don't know.
The Bears are not in unfamiliar territory here. Obviously, they've had game management, clock management issues all year, and again, their coach denies they had any problems. They did exactly what they planned on doing. I don't know what their plan was at that point in the game. No attempt at a potential game-winning field goal. My guess is Brown has probably sealed any chance, a slim chance he might have had to retain this interim job in full time. This game was just awful to watch. I mean, I woke away. I fell asleep myself, Mac, but I woke up at the end of this game to see the confusion at the end, which Coach Brown says there was none. It sounds like a replay of Thanksgiving weekend with Uberfloss, but
Yeah.
this team is in total disarray right now. Some interesting names popping up in conjunction with this job. So,
well, I'll tell you, Seattle got the W. It was very ugly, but it's very big for them, so they could at least walk away from the game feeling really good, because if the Rams lose at home against the Cardinals, it's all set up for Seattle. Final game of the regular season, they play the Rams to see who wins the division. So if they can get some help from the Cardinals this Sunday, it's massive to win over the Bears, as ugly as it was.
You know what I was disappointed in, guys? One of the things I was disappointed in, it felt to me like I'm watching players go through the motions and not even wanting to be there. Maybe a holiday hangover or whatever it is. But there was one specific play that just shocked me. And I understand he's a quarterback, and I know he's banged up, but Geno Smith had a run in the middle of third quarter, I want to say, with a significant gain. But the Bears, two things. The Bears defenders were like making no attempt to even chase him down. And he slides with guys probably 7-8 yards away from him. No matter where you looked on the field, he could have run potentially for a touchdown in that spot. And I understand he's banged up and he wants to protect his body and whatnot, but that one play kind of summed up the entire game for me on both sides of the football. It just felt like they're just going through the motions.
Well, you're trained to slide if you're a quarterback beforehand. You don't want to go for the extra couple of yards unless the game is really on the line at that point. So I understand why Geno Smith did the way he did. Keep in mind the scheduling. These teams played last Sunday. So, now they're coming back on Thursday. It's a short week, and they are probably somewhat banged up, and they're probably tired, and they probably didn't want to be there. You can't blame them. It's human nature. You can't expect them to get all excited. Oh, we have a game Thursday after the game Sunday. They probably dreaded the Thursday game the moment the game ended Sunday for those teams.
Yeah, I'm not bashing the players necessarily. If anybody's to blame for some of this malaise that we see and when players look like they're disinterested, it's the NFL. Those teams that played Christmas Day played 3 games in 10 days. That's too much. And they've got to look at that going forward as they try to get more and more games on TV. You're going to see more of this, and I think it hurts the game and puts the players at risk as well.
Good morning, David. Glad to have you with us this morning. I don't know what to take away. Jacksonville, Seattle's got to feel good about this because at least they're moving on. How do you feel good about a game where you just barely get by a Chicago Bear team that's really hasn't played well? Who you playing next? A win is a win. I get it. But they just looked awful. So
that'd be my argument at this point. A win today, right now, a win's a win. When you're fighting for your life, as Jack said, as they are, because there's no path to the playoffs for them other than the division title, right? A win, any way you get a victory is okay right now. But again, for the NFL in general, it's just not a good look, and it was a bad game. And these are the marquee games, right? Thursday night football, Sunday night football, any of the games on the holidays, and you don't want to see crap like that. So.
Supposed to be, but we've got a lot of crap, especially on Thursday nights, Keith. So the Chiefs secure number 1 seed. Everybody out of Chiefs don't look as good as they did. Blah, blah,
this guy.
Stop already.
Criticize me. They've been piling up the wins against so-so opposition, just barely getting by. But now as the season's going along, they're taking their game up a level. They're taking it up a level. They're not staying at the same level of just getting by. It's like they're taking it to the opposition now. And they're actually peaking at the right time. Whoever heard of a team who's like 12-1, 13-1, and now they're starting to peak.
Right.
Kind of the last 2 years, I heard the same thing about the Chiefs at some point during the season that the dynasty's over. They're just getting by. They're not covering point spreads. No, they don't care about that.
Last year they were bad at the end toward points of the season. They really were. This year they were getting the wins. I remember a game last year against the Raiders, who had a losing record, and the Raiders beat them soundly at Kansas City, and it was a meaningful game for Kansas City too at that point. But this is a different Kansas City team. They're getting the W's, and they're looking good. And, things are falling into place. Pacheco came back. DeAndre Hopkins, his acquisition is looking bigger and bigger as they go along, and he's not even their number one receiver.
Well, they're my favorite as long as they're still alive. They're still my favorite to win it all. They know how to do it, and the rest of these teams do not. So that's a big factor as you head into these playoff games in 2 weeks. Only 2 weeks away. Well, not for them, 3 weeks, but.
Keep in mind that one loss this season did come against the Buffalo Bills.
Regular season.
And it'll have to be a big upset somewhere along the line for the Bills not to play the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game.
Agreed.
I got news for everybody. This team may be better than the first one that went to the Super Bowl. You've got a good running game. The defense is better. Mahomes is on. You got a plethora of receivers now. Hollywood Brown is back. I mean, they got speed again. Of course, the tight end, and as we said, Devontae's there. He's a good possession receiver. I mean, even without Chris Jones, that they did what they did to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I've said for a couple of years, this defense is grossly overrated, especially come playoff time. They turn it up even another notch. They play very well defensively. Steve Spagnuolo is a really good coordinator. As you know, Mac, he orchestrated a couple of big wins against the team we mentioned this morning.
Yes.
Cover up my logos.
He did. But, he is. He knows how to put pressure on a quarterback. He definitely knows how to do that. So, Russell Wilson, guys,
looks bad. He looks bad. He's run out of gas. Something's going on. Again, he played well in the middle part of this season, but he's as responsible for these last 2 losses and again, it's a team game, as anybody in that Pittsburgh locker room.
Yeah, we talk about quarterback situations, and I'm putting it out there ahead of anyone else. I've already did this way in advance. You talk about next season, unless the Steelers make a miraculous turnaround and Russell Wilson plays great, he won't be their quarterback next year. Justin Fields won't be their quarterback next year, their starter, because if he was going to be it, he would have been it this year, logically speaking, because he's been around a few years. But this is my dark horse, and I really could see this happening. Aaron Rodgers, quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, because Mike Tomlin is so familiar with Aaron Rodgers and probably remembers all the greatness that Rodgers formerly showed over the years. And they'll probably look at some film and say, this guy can still do it in our system. He can win in our system. He's better than anything else we could have. They're not going to draft high enough to get a quarterback who's going to be really ready to step in and take the Steelers to the next level. So I'm putting it out there now. Aaron Rodgers, quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers next year. And to Rodgers, it might be appealing because the Steelers would be ready to contend.
I think that's a reasonable scenario. I'll also put out my own prediction. If that happens, then by mid-season, Mike Tomlin will have punched out Aaron Rodgers on the sideline or in the locker room at some point.
Mike Tomlin has been throwing
he's not going to get away with it. Robert Saleh and everybody else has let him get away with. Mike Tomlin's not letting that happen. I can tell you right now.
Rodgers will not.
Well, what about this, Jack? All the players that Aaron Rodgers brought to the Jets, right? To make the Adams and all these receivers, and they don't have a good receiving core at Pittsburgh. They don't. So their defense is. I don't even know if their defense is as good as the Jets' defense at this point. I don't know. So I don't know if that's a step up.
Why would the Steelers want Devontae Adams? Pickens has been a disaster. His conduct.
So
you
what
don't think the Steelers would work out a deal one-on-one Pickens for Adams just to get rid of that headache?
Didn't Adams just sign a contract? Did he just sign a contract with the Jets?
No, I think Adams has 1 year after this, some type of option. I'm not sure.
They assumed his contract. It's not that long. He's right. But the Jets would be nuts to bring Pickens in there, and even up for anybody. I don't want that guy in my locker room.
I don't know. It's possible. It's possible that Rodgers goes there, but he said he wanted to come back to the Jets.
I'm sure Mike Williams would be really happy about that.
Yeah, that would be an interesting reunion.
The worst thing Rodgers did, I think he's taken a lot of bad knocks. I know he's an abrasive guy. I understand all that. but I think he's been taking a lot of unfair knocks. But the one thing he did that really was unacceptable is throwing Mike Williams under the bus when he didn't run the pass pattern the way Rodgers wanted to. You don't mention that at the post-game press conference. As a quarterback, as a leader, you take the hit yourself, and then you speak to the receiver on the side and explain what he should have been doing.
Well, that's Rodgers' MO. Rodgers likes to get in a press conference and explain why he didn't mess up that everybody else did. That's part of his MO. So,
and every week we're talking about Rodgers, so he's happy regardless of the Jets. He's still a main topic of conversation on every show about football.
Don't tell me you watched the special on Aaron Rodgers.
Netflix. I saw part 1. I want to see him in the retreat. I didn't see that part yet.
I changed my parental control, so I don't have access to it.
Good morning, David. Good morning, Rick. Glad to have you, Matt. Good morning and happy holidays to you too. Thanks for joining us this morning. So Baltimore is one of the teams that played 3 games in 11 days. They've scored over 30 points, 30 or over in every game. Houston comes in. Houston just did not look like it was ready to play from outset. They looked down. Their defense, they played small against Derrick Henry. I mean, what are you doing? I mean, that they're going to run the ball. So when he went 5 big, it kind of worked. But CJ Stroud did not look happy the whole game. I don't know what's going on. I know something's going on in the locker room or what. I don't know. They just did not look ready to play at all.
I know that this was the most disappointing team for me of the holiday games because I thought if there was a team that was going to peak late, it could be the Texans, and they went the opposite direction of that. I know the team was affected by Tank Dell getting hurt last week and that pretty horrific injury, but as professionals, you got to find a way to get by that. And maybe 3 days later was too soon to do that, but very disappointed in the Texans' effort here. And I mean, they kind of gave up. I mean, that was ugly.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I know your teammate got hurt, but how about rallying around him? How about winning the game for him? How about
Well, they tried to rally during the game against the Chiefs that he got hurt in that game. They lost that game. Tough game. Then, that game ends and there's a natural letdown. They then have to play a few days later against a really good Baltimore Raven team in Baltimore. And Baltimore's peaking perhaps themselves. And kudos to Lamar Jackson for breaking Michael Vick's rushing record.
Yeah.
They got to prove it to me in the playoffs, but they are playing good football right now for sure.
Exactly. Lamar, 102 touchdowns passing, 1 running. Derrick Henry, 147 yards. Of course, tight end Andrews was involved in it. And the defense just pressured Stroud constant. They couldn't keep Baltimore's defense off Stroud. I mean, I don't know who the offensive line, I don't know why they're not keeping the tight ends to help block. I don't know why they're not chipping. I don't know what they were doing yesterday, but CJ Stroud just was crazy. I mean, that guy didn't have time to throw the ball.
I thought the Patriots.
It was a very 31-2.
Ugly.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson
listen, the Giants played better than the Texans.
Lamar Jackson apologized to his defense for the safety, because otherwise it looks better like a shutout. Yeah. Psychologically, when we look at a score and it's 31-2, we don't think of the defense pitching a shutout, because we see the 2 points. It's got nothing to do with the defense. Same thing, it always bothered that Baltimore Raven team that beat the Giants in the Super Bowl. They won, 31-7. But the Giants' 7 points came on a kickoff. It was returned all the way by Rodney Dixon. So it looks on the surface, they scored 7 points on the Ravens' defense. Psychologically, that's the way it feels. But that wasn't the case at all. They didn't score anything on the Raven defense in that Super Bowl game on this past game.
That's true. So we got a couple games coming up tomorrow. We have the Chargers at the Patriots. The Chargers need to win, I think, to keep alive over there in the wild card hopes. The Patriots have nothing to lose, right? Patriots is going to go out there, play free.
Well, just clinch, I believe. If they win this game, they clinch. I mean, playoff spot.
A playoff spot, correct?
Right. Wild card. It's a wild card.
Yeah, but
if they don't, they'll get up for this game. Harbaugh is a really good motivator. Harbaugh's done a great job with his team. I think they're at least a year ahead of where most people thought they'd be. Patriots will be a home underdog. I believe it's their last home game. Can't remember. They play Buffalo next week. I can't remember if it's home or away. Actually, yeah, I think it's their last home game. So they'll have maybe a little extra incentive there. The Patriots have played well enough to lose games for the most part, had a couple of stinkers here and there. And I think they'll give the Chargers a fight. But I think the Chargers will win this game in the end with the motivation that they have to clinch that playoff spot.
What's the deal with Gerard Mayo? I mean, the feeling is, yeah, he'll be back. 1 year isn't enough. But you kind of get the feeling Robert Kraft can't be too thrilled. The team's kind of been flat. Their defense that they thought might be a little bit of a strength really has just been so. And does Kraft just want to maybe make a bold move and move on? If Kraft is going to take a big hit. It's going to be very unpopular if you let a coach go after 1 year, unless the coach is a lightning rod like an Urban Meyer type. But do you want to necessarily live with the guy an extra year if you get the feeling he's not your guy after all?
It's a tough situation. I think the only way that he leaves if there's some reason Mike Vrabel wants to come and take this job. Otherwise, I don't think there'll be any discussion. He's going to bring him back another year. There's a lot of negative feelings out there about Mayo and the job he's done in the Boston market to begin with, both in the press and in the fan base. Kraft's a loyal guy, and I think he'll give him another year, but I think you'll see some major changes to this staff. I think Covington may not be the defensive coordinator next year, given their lack of success. And they've had some injuries, but everybody has injuries. And even Alex Van Pelt, not sure it's going to depend on what his relationship is with Drake May about whether Alex Van Pelt probably stays as the offensive coordinator. But I think you'll see big changes through this staff if Mayo stays. And don't be surprised. I'm not predicting this. I think Mayo stays. If for some reason he can talk Mike Vrabel and considering his job, it'd be the only way I think that he'll move on.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's say hypothetically Mike Vrabel is willing to take the job. He absolutely would. Would Robert Kraft still move on from Mayo after just 1 year? It still looks bad.
It does.
1 year and you're moving on. This is a young coach who you want to give an opportunity to grow. No one expected anything of the Patriot team this year. They're not really a big disappointment as far as wins and losses. How much better do we expect them to be?
Well, there's a lot there to unpack. So, yes, you're right. We didn't expect them to have a better record necessarily. 4 wins, 5 wins, maybe. But it's been more, he looks unprepared. The team looks unprepared too often. He looks confused on the sidelines. And again, you grow into the job. The penalties, not getting off the field on third down, the things that teams that are looking better, it has not improved through the course of the year either. This team really has been the same team from the other than Drake May. This team has really been the same team since week 1 as far as effort, penalties, things that should get better with good coaching. I think that counts against Mayo. It wouldn't be a good look for Kraft, I agree, but I think if Vrabel wanted to come here, it's the only move that Bob Kraft would make.
Well, you guys brought up a couple things in my head talking about coaches. I know you've heard Pete Carroll's interested in coming back and coaching, and he said he would be willing to coach the Chicago Bears, and the Chicago Bears are actually going to have a meeting with him. Pete Carroll will bring a culture there. There's no doubt about it. Pete Carroll will bring a winning culture there. He knows what he's doing. There won't be that much bad time management anymore. A little old in the tooth, but sure will be a lot better.
Pete Carroll's a very young, 73 years old. He'd be the oldest coach in the NFL again. I am, and I've got beat up a few places I have posted. I think he's a perfect fit for this team because he will change the culture. Pete Carroll's been a hands-off coach as far as X's and O's for a long time in Seattle. He'll hire the right people, I think, to handle that part of it. He's a great motivational guy. He's, again, a very young 73 years old, believe me. And I think he's a great fit here. And I haven't got a lot of that. Chicago fans that I've seen, and I've posted in a couple of their groups are not really looking forward to that. But the guy wins, and there's worse choices you can make here. You're going to go with another coordinator and fail for 5 more years?
We all know Ben Johnson. He's the hottest coordinator out there from the Lions.
Yeah.
You don't know how good these coordinators are once they're head coaches.
No,
You just don't know. I mean, Brian Flores, if you can disregard the baggage, and I don't want to get into that, he would be a great fit because he has head coaching experience, successful head coaching experience with the Dolphins, has done a great job as the Viking defensive coordinator. He'd bring an attitude to the bad defense. They'd have a really good defensive unit. They're not bad now. And he'd elevate the team somewhat. That's if you could put to the side, the baggage that he'd come with.
Again, you got a small window of opportunity here, right? He's not going to coach for 10 more years, obviously, but still, there's some talent on this team, and it's a culture change they need more than talent at this point.
Definitely. So me and Jack have kind of gone at it about this a little bit, and not that I think that I'm, right with this, but there's a lot of coaches out there that can coach 500, and they coach 500, and that's average. And Mike Tomlin, as great as he is, 18 years, he can't get by 500. He can't win in the playoffs anymore. He can't go to the Super Bowl. And I know he's a great coach, and I know another team would scoop him up in a minute. But like Dallas and the Clapper there, who 500 every year for 10 years, they
won a Super Bowl, Matt. Tomlin won a Super Bowl as a head coach. He went to a second Super Bowl.
How many years ago was that, Jack? I mean, right now we're saying that the bar for Mike Tomlin is 500 and making the playoffs and losing. That's the bar.
Matt, but with that logic, think of all the other coaches you probably think are terrific coaches. You wouldn't have them coach your team. Marty Schottenheimer never could get to a Super Bowl. You take George Allen from your Over the Hill gang. You probably really love George Allen. He went to 1 Super Bowl. Okay, he couldn't quite get over the top and win a championship.
And they ended up getting fired. And they ended up getting let go, Jack.
But they got rehired by other teams. It's obvious. If Mike Tomlin, okay, let's pretend for 1 second, we're just talking about the Bears. If Keith was in charge of hiring the next Bear coach, Keith, let's make believe a second, and Mike Tomlin becomes available. Don't you pick up the phone and call him and ask him to come in for a chat? You don't wait for him to call you. You call him, correct?
Absolutely, 100%.
Right. He would. I mean, maybe Keith gives him the job quickly. Maybe he doesn't give him it all. But I'll tell you, Tomlin is in very serious consideration of any vacant job that opens up. He'll get another job. Snap of the finger.
I don't disagree with that. But maybe his time in Pittsburgh's done. There's eventually.
Why?
Because they're winning. They're not winning playoff games, Jack.
Coaches don't leave. Don't get fired in Pittsburgh, though. There's been 3 coaches there in about 60 years, and that's one of the most remarkable stats in sports in my mind. And they don't get fired. They leave on their own, and he's earned the right, I think. Yes, his success rate hasn't been that great, but his teams are in contention. Jack mentioned some other really good coaches whose teams were in contention every single year, sometimes with less talent than other teams. Marty Schottenheimer had some less than great teams, and he had some good ones too, and didn't get over the top. But Marty Schottenheimer, to me, is still one of the best coaches in NFL history because he was a winner in places that hadn't won a long time before he got there. Cleveland, Kansas City was so crappy when he got there. The Chargers were in the crap.
I don't disagree. But if you have a team and you're a fan of a team, and every year for 16 years, you're good enough because you can't get draft choices, not good draft choices, because you're up near the top, and you end up being 500, and you're celebrating in the locker room that you made because you made 500, like that's a goal. I mean, as an owner,
I don't think they're celebrating. We recognize the accomplishment.
I saw them in the locker room dancing and drinking. I did see one time.
Well, it's a streak. Well, after you win a game, you're happy, but it's a streak to be proud of. You might be right. You never know. If Pittsburgh continues playing the way they have the last couple of games, and they back into the playoffs, and then they get beaten soundly the first game, it's possible they'll move on from Mike Tomlin. It's not far-fetched. I mean, who are they going to call in? If you're calling in Mike Vrabel, I understand that. Okay, that could actually maybe help the team. But I think with Mike Tomlin, you have a great coach there. I'm a case in point. Let's look at Bill Belichick's last 4 years with the Patriots. They made the playoffs 1 year. They were 10-7 and got blown out in the playoff game. And they had losing records the other 3 years. Had they had winning records those 3 years, Kraft wouldn't have moved on from Belichick, even though they wouldn't have won a playoff game otherwise. But it's not like Tomlin is going 6-11 and it's time to move on from him. We're happy with what you did, Mike, before, but you can only stretch loyalty so far. But, they're having winning records. They're close to a Super Bowl than
you're talking about a coach. You're talking about a coach that went to 9 Super Bowls, Jack, and won 6. So, I mean, if he has some winning records, you're going to keep him around.
I wouldn't compare him to him, but listen, it all depends. I mean, there's a lot of franchises. They're not in contention every year for 22 years and have one Super Bowl. There's a lot of teams that would kill to have a coach that would contend every single year, right? They contend every 10 years. Carolina,
I'm not disagreeing with you. But Pittsburgh Steelers, 4 Super Bowl champions. They're a high standard team. I mean, they're one of the. This is all I'm saying. And I'm not saying Mike Tomlin's a bad coach. I think Mike Tomlin's a great coach. I think sometimes, as Jimmy Johnson says, sometimes the welcome is just you're not effective anymore some places, and you got to move on. And I think maybe
about Bill Cowher too, by the way.
Right.
Well, that could be the case. But I think you'd have to see it over the course of a whole year with Coach Tomlin. If they don't do well the rest of the year, like I said, back into the playoffs, get eliminated, and then next season they go 7-10. Yeah, it's something to think about. Maybe the welcome does get worn out after a while, and you have to look towards the future, and you just don't see it with Coach Tomlin at that point. Yeah. I understand. But right now, because they've played a couple of terrible games in a row, I wouldn't get all, hyped up about it, where I have to get rid of the guy. Come on.
Very few coaches win without great quarterbacks. There's a handful that have done it, right? But I always have this argument when people talk about Belichick and Brady. I don't remember Landry winning Super Bowls without Staubach or Noel winning without Bradshaw and Walsh without Montana. Nobody wins without a great quarterback as a rule. You get lightning in a bottle a couple times every 2 decades. And Tomlin, again, the trouble is this team has not found a way to replace Ben Roethlisberger. That's mostly on management more than Tomlin himself. He has input, but get him a quarterback, and I'm sure he will still contend for a Super Bowl myself. He's a great coach.
Well, according to Jack, he'll have Aaron Rodgers next year, and they'll win the Super Bowl. So there you go.
Well, I didn't say that. I mean,
that's not Ben Roethlisberger now either, by the way.
Anyway, I'm just messing with you, Jack. Denver and Cincinnati is the other game. Joe Burrow has been playing lights out. I mean, this guy, if the defense was playing well, he may be MVP and not Lamar Jackson so far this year. I think Lamar Jackson has taken the edge.
I would argue Josh Allen is the MVP.
Cincinnati, it's unlikely they're going to make the playoffs. They're still alive. They got to win their last 2 games and get some help. Big game against Denver. They could stick a loss on Denver. And then if Denver loses the following week and Cincinnati wins, Cincinnati would be in. But Cincinnati's the type of team, if they should somehow wiggle into the playoffs, and I don't think they will, but if they should somehow do it, they're dangerous.
Yeah.
On the new season, they're dangerous if you give them a do-over.
I agree with Mac that this might be Joe Burrow's best season, with considering the situations that he's had to play under. He might be the MVP, and I would only argue that Josh Allen's the MVP and not Lamar Jackson right now, as we speak today.
Yeah. I don't know. Denver Another team like the Chargers, I think they have to. Do they have to win out, or at least win one out of the next two? I think.
Yeah, Keith, you mentioned the MVP just quickly. I mean, how can it be anyone but Josh Allen?
I can't
He
see it.
carried the Bills on his back this year. He's been phenomenal.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's going to do going forward, but to this point, he's clear cut as far as I'm concerned.
I'm with you.
I agree too, but you're going to have people saying Lamar Jackson's put up the best numbers of his career when he already won 2 MVPs. That's what they're going to say. I'm telling you straight up.
Well, Josh Allen again. Josh Allen's cut down on turnovers. He's improved. He stepped his game up at least a level, and he was good before.
And Lamar Jackson
I agree.
has more weapons than Josh Allen.
I agree with that too. So we have Bo Nix in Denver. Pretty good offense. Defense is above average. What do you guys think? I mean, who do you think? I'm going to ask you on Denver and Cincinnati. It's in Cincinnati. Do you think Denver beats Cincinnati, Jack?
Denver, Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati wins. Yeah, I think they win. I mean, Cincinnati's on a little bit of an upswing. I think of Bo Nix. He's having a really good year for Denver, but I also think any of the other quarterbacks drafted ahead of him would have been having a good year. You can't count J.J. McCarthy because he's been injured, but I think if it was Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels has had a good year with Washington anyway. Drake May, if he was with Denver, he'd be doing what Bo Nix would be doing. Michael Penix as well.
Do you think that? Do you think that Sean Payton would have them playing the style they're playing right now, running around and stuff? Do you think Sean Payton would have them running that type of offense?
I think all those guys are capable of running that same offense that we just talked about. All of them can run around a little bit. Drake May, a lot in college. Jaden Daniels ran a lot. He's running a lot now. I think that type of offense would have suited anybody that Jack just threw out there.
You know what's interesting? Denver went 12th in the draft, and the Raiders went 13th last year. And the Raiders needed a quarterback pretty badly. Had the Raiders traded up at the last moment and leapfrogged ahead of Denver and taken Bo Nix, what would Denver have done for quarterback this year? I mean, would they have actually gone with Jason Stidham or Zach Wilson? Or would they have found some veterans somewhere? Because I don't know how it would have worked out.
Whatever they'd done, they wouldn't be in playoff contention right now, I'm guessing, with any of those options.
So CeeDee Lamb will be out for the last couple games here with shoulder injury. I think you'll see a lot of people that are injured that may not be playing in the last couple games. Talk about, Giants are playing Philadelphia the last game. Philadelphia resting their players and not playing their starters against the Giants. Me, of course, I don't think you should do that, but some coaches do that. So, better. Anyway, college football, Keith, we had a 6-time overtime. These are all bowl games now, right? If I'm not mistaken, for the most part. These have nothing to do with the playoffs.
All bowl games or playoff games, which are going to be bowl games now this coming week as well.
Right. So the biggest one was Toledo and Pitt with 6 overtimes. Am I right?
6 or 7. Listen, the overtime rules in college are like archaic. They're silly. They need to change them. Maybe go to NFL. They think it's exciting and that's great, but you're not. The whole idea they've tried to these overtimes, both the college and NFL try to eliminate injuries because the guys have already played 60 minutes and blah blah blah. But you send guys out there over and over and over again to bang on each other, and after 2 possessions, you're just going for 2-point conversions in overtimes. So those last 5 overtimes were just teams going for 2-point conversions. And okay, I guess there's some excitement in it, but it just throws everything off for me. I don't like that college overtime rule at all. Here's a Pitt coach.
I know during the regular season you can have ties in the NFL. Are there ties in college football?
No, you play till somebody wins. You play till somebody wins, even in overtime. There is no until somebody doesn't convert and you do. Like I said, they just trade 2-point conversion attempts. You get 1 shot. After 2 full, you go, and again, early on, you start at 25. Each team has, you can get a first down. You have 1 shot. the team will get a chance to match the points. After 2 of those possessions, it's all 2-point conversion attempts after that. So,
Chief, Pitt and Toledo 6 overtimes. 2 questions. Number 1, why can't they allow a bowl game unless it's for some type of national championship? Not talking about the playoffs. Why can't they just let it end in a tie?
they can. I'm the same way in the NFL. I'm okay with ties. If you play to a tie, you play to a tie.
And also, rather than have the players put their body through that, because this is football, why can't they maybe, this is just an idea, nothing more, do what they do in hockey or soccer, like penalty kicks or something. Let you kick a line up and from the 20, 25, 30, you settle it or something after a while, because 6 overtimes? Come on.
Why play it? I'd rather end in a tie than create things that aren't.
I agree.
Right? And you just change the whole dynamic of the game. And that's what they've done in college with these overtime rules. That's not the way the entire game is played. So we change it for overtime. At least the NFL plays the way you normally would play a game, right? And if it ends in a tie, it ends in a tie. Except in the playoffs, you can't do that, obviously.
Of course. Yeah,
and by the way, if total lack of class on Pat Nardozzi, Pitt coach yesterday, wouldn't shake Toledo's coach hand at the end of the game. He's probably going to lose his job here. He lost his last 6 or 7 games here. 6 games.
There was this interaction with Nick Sirianni and Zach Ertz, at the end of the game, and Sirianni called him later. They had to talk, apologize. Said to me, it's all squash. But I'm going to say something. If you're shaking someone's hand and they hit you too hard on the hand, a high five, and slap you extra hard, to me, that's insulting.
Well,
you don't just let it go. It happened with Jim Harbaugh a while ago with the Lions.
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh was a complete jerk as far as I'm concerned.
All he did was slap the guy in the back.
No, you don't hit the guy so hard on his hand. I mean, where it actually hurts the guy's hand with enthusiasm.
I can't get worked up that much.
I would love to see 2 coaches going at it in the middle of the field. That would be great.
Well, Nick Sirianni had the right to be upset with it. But then he took it a little too far. He made a remark that, Ertz didn't contribute to this team's win at all. He didn't do anything on the field. And, and that was a guy formerly coached. So he apologized for that. But
Ertz was there long before Sirianni got there.
Yeah, he was on with Sirianni like 5 games or so, before they traded him to Arizona.
Yeah. And Ertz is a great tight end for Philadelphia. Some games this weekend. Touch on with you, Keith. Oklahoma at Navy. Any chance Navy can beat Oklahoma?
I think Navy will beat Oklahoma outright. Right. Yes, right. I do. Oklahoma's not very good. They had 1 big win against Alabama. Very disappointing. Other than that, I like Navy in this game.
Wow. I think you're going a little. You're giving a little too much credit to Navy because they beat our.
By the way, these are flip of a coin because you have no idea who's playing because the players have opted out. But not Navy. That's one of the reasons I like Navy is there's no opt-outs. Right.
That's true. That's true.
You can't just opt out of your service commitment. Well, you can, but I don't think it's going to be good.
Yeah. That's called AWOL. Yeah.
And all these other teams have got 15, 20, 25 opt-outs on there. You don't even know who's playing. Oklahoma has no quarterback. Their quarterback transferred already. So.
I know the NCAA has no power, but there should be some kind of rule that you have to finish the season before you leave.
Well, no, they do have. You could institute something, and first of all, you could change the portal windows. The portal windows open, and it's because kids need to enroll by January to be able to be eligible for spring practices. But the portal window opens up on the 9th of December, and it closes like the 29th or something. So these kids all leave. Even kids in the playoff. Arizona's had 12 kids opt out of their playoff game, and Tennessee had 11 before they played Ohio State. It's just not, the system isn't set up well, and they need to get on the same page somehow.
What do you think about Georgia Tech at Vanderbilt? Georgia Tech looked good in the beginning of the year, Keith. They were a decent team. Vandy looks as a decent team too. You think it'll be a good game?
Georgia, I think this will be a good game, actually. Vanderbilt was better than we expected, faded a little bit at the end of the year. Georgia State beat Miami the second to the last week of the season before Miami ultimately lost to Syracuse. I like Georgia Tech in this game.
Okay. And Texas Tech at Arkansas. I saw something about Arkansas. I forget what it was before I came in. I don't know if it was bad or good or whatever, but Texas Tech.
I don't see any major news about Arkansas. They made a commitment to keep Sam Pittman, their head coach, which was kind of in doubt. I like Texas Tech here. They finished the year really strong. They've got a really good offense. This is a game, if you'd like to bet overs, this might be, again, depending on who's playing.
Mac, are you there? It froze.
I'm here. I see. I blew his mind with that Texas Tech question there. Keith.
Maybe he's still thinking.
The microphone. I wish I could take a picture of that. He went off. And okay, well, we'll keep going. We got Syracuse at Washington State, and we got Texas A&M at USC. Now, Jack, there's been a lot of transactions with the Yankees. They didn't sign Soto, but they have picked up a lot of players. I'll name a few. I got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 here. Of course, Cody Bellinger, first base outfielder. Where do you think he's going to play, Jack?
Yeah, he's going to play the outfield. I mean, that's obvious. They got Paul Goldschmidt, from the Cardinals to play first base. And, the Yankees lost some players, too. You hear, they picked up 7 players or whatever. I don't want to hear plus. I mean, Clay Holmes, an effective middle reliever for the Yankees is no longer there. He went to the Mets. They're going to try him as a starter. If that doesn't work out, he'll be a middle reliever. I don't think it'll work out long-term, him as a starter, but it remains to be seen. And Gleyber Torres, who I happen to like, but they're moving on from him. They felt his defense was a bit spotty and he was a bit erratic. And they're going to move Chase Chisholm to second base, his natural position. He played third last year, meaning they're going to need a third baseman. I mean, to run it back a little with DJ LeMayo is risky. LeMayo has 2 years left on his contract at good money, $15 million a year. It's risky. I would just count on LeMayo being a utility player, backup. He could play a few positions, and you use him that way. But they're still looking, as far as third base goes. Nolan Arenado from the Cardinals, he's going to definitely be in play. I have a feeling the Yankees might wind up with him, but he's owed a lot of money. That's where the problem lies. Yeah. And the Yankees want the Cardinals to pay it fast, some of the money. So we'll see what could be worked out, in that regard. But Cody Bellinger, the plan is for him really to play center field for now, move Aaron Judge to right field. Bellinger's a really good defender. Juan Dominguez, their rookie, is going to be the other outfielder, so he's going to be given a chance really to see what he could do. He's supposedly a good prospect, but if Dominguez was that good a prospect, why didn't the Yankees use him more in the playoffs last year?
Yeah, I remember he was on the team.
Yeah. Right. Dominguez, if he had that much upside, you take a little bit of a chance with him now and then in a playoff game. And the Yankees really didn't do that. But Paul Goldschmidt at first base, 1-year deal. He's an older player. He had a bit of a down year last year, but he had a good year 2 years ago. And the Yankees are hoping he can get back a lot of what he had. But when you have an older player, can you really count on them waging a big comeback? You know what I wanted the Yankees to do, guys? This would have been a real risky move. If the Angels would have split his salary, the remaining years left is something like that, if it could have been worked out, I would have taken a fly on Mike Trout. I really would. If I wouldn't have paid his full salary, I would have taken that chance because Trout, it hasn't been proven that his performance has been slipping as of yet. He's just been hurt a lot.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know. I if you're gonna have a guy that's not gonna, how many games did Trout play last year?
Well, he's been hurt. He's been injury prone, but he has a no trade. But the Angels have been losing every year with Trout. He's from New Jersey. He would welcome the chance, to play for the Yankees or preferably the Phillies.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Phillies, yeah.
But he'd be happy to play in the area where he
Yeah.
grew up. A lot of his friends would come to the games. His parents live, in the Jersey area. It would have been a good fit for him. I believe he would have okayed that trade. I can't imagine him saying, no, I'm not leaving the Angels. I'm invoking my no trade clause.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Keith. We're going over like the transactions. Bellinger, me and Jack think's going to play center field. I agree with him. We didn't talk about Max Fried yet. He's a pretty good closer, so we do got a closer.
Oh, that's starter. You mean Devin Williams?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, my bad.
Williams,
My bad.
very good closer.
My bad.
Max
Devin Williams.
Fried is outstanding. Max Fried, it's the equivalent. Getting Max Fried is the equivalent moving forward of getting Andy Pettitte. That's what it's going to be for the Yankees. The equivalent of that.
He's a good comparison.
Yeah.
Fernando
a couple minutes, but I did want to just leave you hanging. Sorry, my internet crashed for a
Okay,
second.
I know you got a guest today, Keith. Can you let us know who that is?
Today we have Don Beebe, former wide receiver with the Buffalo Bills and the Green Bay Packers, won a Super Bowl with the Packers and lost a few with the Bills. He's the head coach at Aurora University now, doing a bang-up job there.
Look at you with all these big guests, Keith. What's going
Don
on?
Beebe, famous for that play, running down the Cowboy.
Leon
Lett.
Lett. 50. No, there's been another player in the NFL would have caught Leon Lett that day down 52-17. I can tell you right now. Can't wait to talk to Dan about that.
That's going to be great. Can't wait to watch it. All right, Keith, you have a great one. Thanks for stopping in.
See you guys. Bye-bye. See you Sunday.
Take
See you,
care.
Keith.
All right, he's getting some big guests over there. He's got Richard Todd
Don
coming.
Beebe. No,
Yeah,
Don
Don-
Beebe was on the 4 Buffalo Bill teams that 4 years in a row that went to the Super Bowl and didn't win it. But eventually he got traded to the Packers, and they won a Super Bowl.
Right.
And he was on the field for the last play of the game when they had it kneel down with the ball.
That's
So
cool.
it was, he said afterwards, he thought of all his Buffalo Bill teammates, the way he would have liked for them to experience what he did with the Packers.
Yes. Yeah, listen, those about to make 4 Super Bowls in a row is something to be said, Jack. I mean, I know they didn't win. The NFC was a lot stronger back then, but to go to 4 Super Bowls in a row is never been done.
No, but statistically, no. But there were greater accomplishments in the Super Bowl era by far. For example, the year the Cowboys, the 4 years where they won 3 Super Bowls in 4 years, the 1 year they didn't win it, they lost in the NFC Championship game. So that's the same thing with the Chiefs. They won it like 2 out of 4 years. They lost they won 2 Super Bowls, lost 1. In the 1 year they didn't go to the Super Bowl, they lost in overtime in the AFC Championship game. So those are great accomplishments than the Bills 4 in a row. But statistically speaking, the Bills do hold the record 4 Super Bowls in a row. It's a great accomplishment. But outside of their loss to the Giants, they just didn't show up for the other games, unfortunately. The last Super Bowl they lost to the Cowboys, they were actually winning at the half 13-6, but they were flat. They were so flat. I never saw anything like it. You'd think there'd be enthusiasm. Jim Kelly, their quarterback, was very enthusiastic. He tried to lead them. He showed leadership. But the rest of the guys, even Troy Aikman said, we were both walking back to our locker room, both teams, and went down 13-6. We're looking at them, and they're not even excited. They're just dragging their way in there,
I mean, listen, that was good. I mean, the Broncos had the same problem the first 3 times, but they finally got it together later when they got a running game and defense and all that. So, Jack, a little Knicks news. Bridges has a big game. Wemby had a huge game. New York slipped by San Antonio. And Wemby's just a phenomenon. I mean, he's an unbelievable player. He's going to be something for years to come if he doesn't get
one of the
hurt.
greatest of all time. He's going to be hands down.
Oh, no doubt.
Hands down. One of the greatest to ever play the game.
And Bridges did his thing. I mean, Bridges isn't known to be a huge scorer, but he came through for the Knicks. And the Knicks just seem to they're starting to get their chemistry together. They're starting to feel good with each other. I know about their bench, Jack, but I was thinking, bench What do you need on your bench? I mean, a couple players. I remember watching the Celtics and the Bulls and the Pistons. They didn't have a lot of bench players. They had guys that came in and filled spots.
No,
you know,
they had bench players. They had bench players who were important. But you win championships with your impact players. You win games with your bench players, but you win championships with your impact players, guys who can dominate, take over game. They're really the core of the team. And with the Knicks, it's basically Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges. Those guys got to really be playing well. Then you have other guys, Josh Hart. Mitch Robinson might get traded. He's been injured a lot with the Knicks, so they're going to look to maybe upgrade their bench by dangling Mitch Robinson to one of the teams.
Yeah, that's good possibility. We talked about before the show. I mean, it's almost the end of the year. MVP, you and Keith think Josh Allen is probably going to get that. I can see why he really doesn't have what other quarterbacks have that are up near the top. I get it. How about Offensive Player of the Year, Jack?
That's Josh Allen, Offensive Player of the Year. What a quarterback.
Well, he's an MVP, you're saying. He's not going to get both, is he?
Well, why not?
Because you got Henry, you got Barkley, you got Justin Jefferson.
But you could be Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, you're asking me if it wasn't Josh Allen who I would vote for. I'd vote for Saquon Barkley. I think he's been a bigger difference maker for the Eagles than Derrick Henry's been for the Ravens. And Henry's been a difference maker, don't get me wrong. But I think Barkley, has meant a little more to Philly.
Okay. Any votes for Justin Jefferson for the Vikings?
He's been outstanding, but it's weird that the wide receivers get paid more than the running backs. And when you think of it, who has a greater impact on their team? I mean, it's debatable. It's debatable. Justin Jefferson is great. You could argue that he's the best receiver in the game right now, and he's elevated Sam Darnold a lot, no doubt about that. But I couldn't put him ahead of Saquon Barkley, at this point.
I agree with you. I think Barkley is a good shot at making Offensive Player of the Year. So, folks, that's the top of the hour. Thanks for joining us. Up next is Coffee and Sports. Thanks to Keith Engel for joining us, as he does every Friday. Tomorrow we have the Sports Memory Show, where we talk about events, people, and teams from the past. And, of course, Sunday we have the Big Football Show, where we bring all the games, picks, big crew. We'll have a great time. Thanks for joining us. And if you're going out tonight, be careful. Jack, great job. Keith, great